Hey, what's up, coach? Welcome back to the podcast. Today is episode 252. And before we dig in, I just want to congratulate all the action takers who have taken me up on this special bundle that I'm putting together for the Perfect Client Blueprint and the Startup Sports Business Academy ebook and video series. I started talking about this on October 18th on episode 246. And this special promotion ends on October 31st. I'm going to have that end that evening. So you still have time, but those who have taken action, I've gotten some great feedback from those who've gone through it. I mean, I've had, a lot of coaches worldwide go through these resources already. But I'm really excited for the coaches who've taken action recently because I know this is going to really help them with their business. And I want these resources to help you. And I'm giving this discount. And this discount will end, like I said, on the 31st. And after that, it's over. Now, today's episode is Scarcity Mindset Will Kill You. And, man, have I learned a great lesson from this. And this is something that happened to me. It was probably one of the scariest points of my business. But when I first started training kids, obviously it took me time, right? It took me time to get new clients. It took me time to get confidence. I think it's like that with everybody. Like nothing's going to happen overnight. But I remember when I got a little comfy, right? I got to a point where I was very comfortable, where I had a certain amount of kids I was training. Everything was going good. Like I was playing a little golf during the week, chilling, right? And again, I wasn't making that much money back then at all. But I knew my lifestyle was so much better than someone who was working 40 hours a week. I had so much more free time. I was training kids, pretty much every day in the afternoons. And I wasn't charging a lot. Like my business, financially, my business was not doing good. But I thought it was doing good. That was just my perception at the time. And I got really comfortable. And I've said this story like a long time ago on this podcast, I believe. And I know I've talked about it on YouTube. But I remember I had 15 clients, and this happened right before July 4th. And every parent told me that they were going to go out of town. Like they're going to be out of town that week. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go out of town too. And so that week, I didn't train anyone. And everyone was paying me cash, so it's like that. I went a week without being paid. That's what it felt like, right? And that's what happened. No one was prepaying. No one was paying online. None of that stuff was happening. And it's so funny though how this worked out. But after the parents told me that, like July 4th, that happened, and then I got to the next couple of days after July 4th, and I started texting some of my clients, like wishing them a happy July 4th week and knowing that they were all out of town. And what happened was like everyone who went out of town did not come back to my program. So here I was like super comfy. I was like, oh man, I'm chilling right now. I'm playing golf, having fun, training the kids that I thought were committed. In reality, no one was committed to my program. Like they were just in the program, and they could fire me whenever they wanted. And I remember during this time, I was freaking the F out. And I was living in this little garage apartment. This place was so garbage. Like there's no AC. I mean, I live in Texas, and July in Texas with no AC is like hell, right? It's awful. And I remember once I realized no one was coming back, I was like, oh my gosh, like there's no other kids that in my area that I can train. And I remember I fell into like a depression over the next week. And I was like seriously considering going back and getting a job. Because I was like, man, like, I built up these relationships with these kids. I thought they were getting better. And I thought that these parents just turned their back on me. But in the reality, they didn't. Like, they didn't do anything negative. It was the way I set my business up. Like, I was destined to fail doing it that way. And I did fail doing it that way. And I learned over that week of just being down in the dumps, feeling sorry for myself. I learned a lot about myself that week, where like I knew I had to change my mindset, because I thought that there was no other kids in my area. And then I started to think, well, how did I get these kids in the first place to start training with me? And I went back to my roots, and I was like, well, I spent a lot of time talking to parents out at the field. And I was like, well, I spent a lot of time, writing out these newsletters to these parents. I spent a lot of time meeting new connections. And it's crazy how this works out. But I remember within a month, I replaced all those clients. And I also changed my business a little bit to where my business was a little bit more secure. Not that much more secure, right? But it was set up better for me. So this way I had clients who were a little bit more committed, because I was still back then afraid to like have an overhaul with my business where I just sacked up and changed everything at once. And I wasn't there yet, but I did realize that I need to have the abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. And this is the reality. Like, if I wanted to right now, I could turn off this podcast and I could go into the neighborhood that I'm looking at outside my window, and I could go knock on every single door. And within a 12-hour period, I could go knock on, every neighborhood door in that neighborhood and find 5 other neighborhoods. And I can guarantee you, I could find 15 kids that want to train with me. And you could do the same too. And that just comes down to the sheer belief that there's not a limited amount of kids in your area that can train with you. Like, there's an abundant number of kids that can train with you. But that's something you have to believe, right? I believe that because I used to think the opposite, right? So I hope this helps you out, right? You don't need to have this scarcity mindset, and that will kill you. That will kill your business if you think that way. I promise you, right? That's it for today's podcast. If you want to take advantage of that special bundle we're putting together with the Perfect Client Blueprint and the Startup Sports Business Academy ebook and video series, go direct message me right now on Instagram. Say, hey, Ben, I want the bundle, and I will hook that up for you at a special discount. So that's it. I'll see you later.